Yo, what's going on guys? Tanmay here for Simple Snippets. Welcome back to another video tutorial on pattern printing programs. And let's continue with three different variations with half pyramid, that is the simple triangle. If you've been watching this pattern printing playlist, we've already seen this pattern, which is the half pyramid pattern. But the variation over here is, instead of the numbers and the alphabets that we were seeing previously, we're going to deal with incremental alphabets in this tutorial and in these three patterns that we're going to study. So when I say study, of course, we are going to dry run the entire for loops and the code which you can see on the screen. We're going to see the entire working step by step and get the output using our digital blackboard. And at the end of the video, we will also see the program and implement these three patterns with few extras in the coding side. So make sure you watch this video till the end. And with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so as you can see, all of these three are half pyramids, that is a simple triangle, which is of this structure. You can see all of them are half pyramids. The reason why it is called half pyramid is because the other half is missing, which is this part. That is a different pattern. But the catch here is, that is the difference in each pattern is, we are dealing with incremental alphabets which are incrementing in different way. So in pattern 1, you can see we have alphabet A on the first row, B on the second row, C on the third row, D on the fourth row, and so on and so forth. So if we had a fifth and if we had sixth row, it would be F 6 times. Okay, so that's how the pattern is progressing in pattern 1. In pattern 2, again we have 5 rows, but now we are getting consecutive alphabets. We are getting A, then we are getting A, B, then we are getting A, B, C, then we have A, B, C, D, and in proper sequence in ascending order starting from A to E. And in pattern 3, again we have alphabets which are incrementing, but they are not repeating. So if A is printed on the first row, on the second row we are starting with B and C. And in every row, the number of elements being printed is incremented by 1. So on the first row we only have 1 element. On the second row we have 2 elements. On the third we have 3, and so on and so forth. So the design of the pattern is pretty much same, which is half pyramid of course. But what is printed inside that pattern is different. And all of them are variation of incremental alphabets. Alright. So now that this basic understanding is cleared, let's start off with pattern 1 and quickly dry run the entire code. If you watched the previous tutorials, the for loop conditions are pretty much exactly the same. The only thing being added is this variable char, which is a char data type variable whose name is alphabet, and it is storing an alphabet which is required for printing the alphabet in the inner for loop. Okay. Now depending upon where this is initialized and created as well as where it is incremented, you can see in all the three examples it is created at different places and the incrementation also happens at different places at times. So depending upon where exactly it is created as well as incremented, this pattern is generated. Now that is what we are going to dry run in this entire tutorial for all the patterns. So let's quickly start off with pattern 1. Alright, starting off with pattern 1, as you can see on the screen, this is the pattern that we want. Below is the entire for loop code. Now we are using C++ programming language, but if you're using any other general purpose programming language, it is absolutely okay. The logic and the code is pretty much going to be the same thing. Only the syntax is going to be changing in the different programming languages that you're using. But otherwise, the logic is going to be the same. On the right hand side, in the top, we are going to track all the variable values. That is what is dry running is all about. We are going to track the variables inside the for loops, which is int I, j, the value n. N is nothing but the number of rows that we want to print. Over here, n is going to be equal to 5 and it is going to be constant. But in the program, we will take this n value from the user. Okay. And then we are also going to track the variable value alphabet over here. So let's write alphabet. Okay. Which is a character data type. That's why it is storing A initially. Now, of course, it can start from any alphabet. It can start from B. It can start from M. Anything depending upon you and what pattern you want to print. Okay. So initially it is initialized as A, right? And below at the bottom right, we have output, which we have drawn a basic command prompt. This is where we will draw the output, draw this pattern. And let's quickly jump into the for loop and see what the values are. So the first for loop, so we have two for loops. We have one outer for loop and we have inner for loop. And typically in triangle patterns, the outer for loop is responsible for generating these number of rows. So we have 5 number of rows, right? So n is equal to 5. Let me create alphabet value again. So since we have 5 number of rows, the outer for loop is gonna run 5 times. And let's see what is there inside the for loop. We are saying int I equals to 1. So let's say I equals to 1. I has to be less than or equal to 5, right? Because n is 5. And we are saying I plus plus. So I will take values 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, correct? That's how this outer for loop will run. This is very basic, and if you've seen previous tutorials by now, this should be very thorough. But if you're watching this for the first time, even then this for loop is pretty basic. It will start from 1 and it will go plus plus till I is less than or equal to n, which means it is going to run 5 times. Pretty basic. Moving inside, we have the inner for loop, which is actually doing the printing work. Okay, so the second for loop, which is the inner for loop, is where the actual printing happens. And inside we have another iterator in j. We are starting with j equals to 1, and we are saying j has to be less than equal to I. So initially for the first iteration, which is the outer loop I equals to 1, we are saying j has to be less than equal to I. Now we just said j and I both are 1. We have just created j equals to 1. So 1 has to be less than equal to I. What is the value of I? Right now it is 1. And we are also saying j plus plus. Okay, but that will happen after the first round. So first the condition is checked, because for loop, remember, is an entry controlled looping structure where the condition is checked first. So is 1 less than equal to 1? Yes, it is not less than 1, but it is equal to 1. So you'll go inside and you're gonna say cout alphabet. What is the value inside alphabet? It is A, so A is printed, correct? Now after this, we have only one line or one statement in the inner for loop, so you'll come at the start of the for loop and you're gonna say j plus plus. So now j will become 2, correct? So now again the condition will be checked, which is j less than equal to I? So is 2 less than equal to 1, because I is still 1, because we are in the first round of the outer for loop. So of course 2 is not less than equal to 1, because 2 is greater than 1. So now the condition has become false, so you'll not go inside this inner for loop, you'll come outside, and now you're going to say alphabet plus plus. So when you say alphabet plus plus, what happens is the next alphabet is selected. Now if you're wondering, now since this is a char data type, how can you do plus plus for a char data type? Now the reason being, char is actually an integral data type, because these alphabets, these letters actually have a ASCII value. Okay, so I hope you know what is the ASCII code, and it is pretty much common in every programming language. So the ASCII value of small a is going to be same in Java, is going to be same in C, it's going to be same in C++ or in any other programming language. It is a fixed standard, it is a fixed value, and that is a numeric value. Okay, so that's why when you say alphabet plus plus, the next alphabet, the next ASCII value after a is selected, and after small a, the next ASCII value is small b. So that's why when you say alphabet plus plus, actually what you're doing is you're storing b in this alphabet variable. Okay, so now this becomes b. So after you say alphabet plus plus, you'll say cout endl, and in C++ endl means end line, so you come on the next line in the command prompt. That's the only purpose of this statement. And after this, you're basically at the end of the outer for loop, so you'll go at the start of the outer for loop, and now you'll say I plus plus. So I was 1, I will become 2 now. So now I has become 2. Of course, I can take values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's a legitimate value. You don't have to check every time. You'll go inside, you'll again run this inner for loop. Again, you'll say int j equals to 1. So now j will become 1, and the condition is j has to be less than I. And I this time is 2. So when you say j equals to 1, 1 has to be less than equal to 2, and you're saying j plus plus. So now j will take two values, which is 1 and 2, because even when you do plus plus, 2 is also less than equal to 2, correct? So this means now this inner for loop will run 2 times, and 2 times you're gonna print cout alphabet. Now alphabet's value is b, you can see. So b is gonna be printed 2 times, and after which j will become 3. When j becomes 3, this condition becomes false, because 3 is not less than equal to 2. So you'll come outside the for loop, you'll say alphabet plus plus. Again alphabet will be c, because small c is the next ASCII value after b. Okay, I'll put up the ASCII values on the screen, some of them at least you can see, or you can just google them out. So after this, you'll say cout endl, you'll come on the new line. This is the last statement in the outer for loop, so you'll go at the start of the outer for loop, you'll say I plus plus. So I will now take the value 3. So when I becomes 3, you'll again go inside and you'll again start running the inner for loop. You'll again initialize j equals to 1, so j will become 1. So I hope you know in a for loop the initialization happens only once. Then the condition is going to be checked, j has to be less than equal to I. So j is 1, 1 has to be less than equal to, what is the value of I now? It is 3, and we are saying j plus plus. So now j will take the values 1, 2 and 3, which means it will run 3 times, and all 3 times it is simply going to print alphabet. What is the value inside alphabet variable? It is C. So C is going to be printed 3 times. You'll come outside, you'll say alphabet plus plus. So now the next ASCII value after small c is for small d, that will be stored. Then you'll come onto the new line by using endl. Again go at the start. I will become 4. I know I'm going a little fast, but I'm guessing you guys already have got the hang of it. And for those who've already seen the previous tutorials, you guys can literally skip on to the next pattern just to understand the placements. I'm guessing everything else you already know, so you can go at 2x speed also. But yeah, when I becomes 4, you'll again go inside the for loop and the inner for loop will start running. So you'll say j equals to 1 again, and 1 has to be less than equal to I, which is this time 4. So j will take values 1, 2, 3, 4, which means it is going to run 4 times. 4 times alphabet is going to be printed. Alphabet is nothing but the value d. So 4 times d is printed. You'll come outside the for loop. You'll say alphabet plus plus. So now the ASCII value e will be stored in the character variable alphabet. You'll say cout endl. You'll come on to the next line. Go to the start of the for loop. Say I plus plus. I will become 5. When I becomes 5, the inner for loop will run from 1 to 5, which means 5 times, because 1 has to be less than equal to I, which is nothing but 5, and we are saying j plus plus. So this is j not I. You'll print alphabet 5 times, so e is going to be printed 5 times, after which you'll exit this inner for loop. You'll say alphabet plus plus, so alphabet will have f. Then you'll say cout endl, come on to the new line, go to the start of the for loop, you'll say I plus plus, and now I will become 6. So when I will be equal to 6, this is where this condition becomes false, because 6 is not less than equal to n. What is the value of n? N is constant, n is 5. Is 6 less than equal to 5? No. 6 is greater, right? So this is where this for loop will stop working and you'll come outside the for loop. And basically if you see on the command prompt onto the digital blackboard, we have achieved our output, the half pyramid triangle pattern with this incremental kind of alphabets A, B, B, C, C, D, 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 E, E, E. Now if this alphabet was set to B, we would have started printing with B. So we would got B, then we would have got C, C, then we would have got D, 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 so on and so forth. So you can try out the different variations, experiment yourself, and this is triangle pattern 1. Let's quickly jump to triangle pattern 2. Okay, so triangle pattern 2 is where we are getting a sequence of alphabets. So we are first printing only one element on the first row, which is A. Then for the second row we are printing A and B. Then third row we are printing A, B, C, and so on and so forth. So n over here is also 5. Correct? We want 5 rows. You can see. It is just that the placement where the alphabet variable is created is inside the outer for loop, but outside the inner for loop. Okay? Remember this placement, it is important, because every time now for the outer for loop iteration, the alphabet will again be reinitialized to A. That is why it is created inside the outer for loop but outside the inner for loop. Don't get confused, don't worry, we will dry run this and you'll understand. Rest everything inside the conditions of the for loop are gonna be the same. So the outer for loop is, as I mentioned, taking care of the number of rows. So you can see we are saying I equals to 1. I has to be less than n. So 1 has to be less than equal to 5, and you are saying I plus plus, which means this outer for loop will take values 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Correct? So outer for loop is gonna run 5 times. Now after that, inside you are saying char alphabet. So you are creating the alphabet variable over here inside the outer for loop. So let's write alphabet equals to alphabet A. Okay. Now this placement is the reason why we are gonna get this type of incremental alphabets, and you'll understand that. So after creating this alphabet variable, you'll move forward with the inner for loop. Now as I mentioned, the inner for loop condition is going to be exactly the same like pattern 1. So when I is equal to 1, that is for the first round of the outer for loop, the inner for loop will run only one time, because we are saying j equals to 1, j has to be less than I. So 1 has to be less than equal to I, which is also 1, and you are saying j plus plus. So only one round of the inner for loop will happen, and you are saying cout alphabet plus plus. So again, this is one more variation. You are not incrementing the alphabet outside the inner for loop. We are doing the incrementation inside the inner for loop only. So when you say cout alphabet plus plus, what happens is the value of the alphabet is printed. Okay, what is the value of the alphabet variable right now? It is a. So a is going to be printed, and since this is a post increment operator, first the value is going to be printed, and then the alphabet value is going to be incremented by 1. And when I say it is incremented by 1, it means that the next ASCII value is going to be stored in the alphabet variable. So now the alphabet variable will have b, because small b is the next ASCII value after a. Now please try to understand this, because this is an important step. So after printing and incrementation, you'll again go at the start of the for loop, and now j will become 2. But now this condition will become false, because j is not less than I, because 2 is not less than I is 1. So as I mentioned, for the first iteration when I is equal to 1, the inner for loop will run only one time. So of course this condition becomes false, and you will come outside and you are going to say cout endl, which means you will come on the new line. So after this, you will again go to the start of the for loop. You will say I plus plus. So I will now take the value of 2. Correct? So I will become 2. When I becomes 2, the inner for loop will run 2 times. This is something that we know. So let's go inside. So when you go inside this outer for loop, you are again creating this alphabet variable, right? And you are again saying char alphabet equals to a. So this alphabet variable will be recreated, and again a will be assigned to it. Okay? Because remember, we want the sequence starting from a only. So at every row we have a, correct? So we are starting with a always. So that's why we are recreating this alphabet variable over and over again in the outer for loop. So after this, we will proceed in the inner for loop, and this time the inner for loop will go from 1 to 2, because j will start with 1 and j has to be less than I is this time 2. So j will take values 1 and 2, which means that the inner for loop will run 2 times. So for the first round of the inner for loop, you are going to say cout alphabet plus plus. So alphabet value is first printed, which is a. Then the post increment operation will happen, which means this alphabet value will be incremented by 1, and the next ASCII value for the alphabet is going to be small b. So small b is going to be stored. Then you'll come at the start of the for loop and you'll say j plus plus. So j will now become 2. So when j becomes 2, 2 is still less than equal to I this time, because I is also 2. So 2 is equal to 2. So you'll again go inside for loop and you'll say cout alphabet plus plus. So what is the value of alphabet? Alphabet has the value b. So b is printed, and then the post increment operation happens. So now the value will become c. So you can see now we printed a and b on the second row. That is what we wanted over here. So after this, again you'll come at the start of the inner for loop. You'll say j plus plus, j will become 3. 3 is not less than equal to 2, because I is 2. So this for loop will stop working. You'll come outside the inner for loop. You'll say cout endl onto the new line. Then you'll go at the start of the for loop. You'll say I plus plus, I will become 3. Now when I becomes 3, the inner for loop runs 3 times, correct? So you'll go inside the outer for loop. You'll again recreate this alphabet variable and you'll start with alphabet equals to a. Then the inner for loop will start running from j equals to 1 to less than equal to I, which is 3, which means that j will take values 1, 2 and 3. So it will run 3 times, and all the 3 times it is going to print alphabet plus plus. So first time the alphabet value is a, then plus plus will happen, that is post increment will happen. So alphabet value will become b. For the second iteration, you'll again print alphabet plus plus. So b is going to be printed and the alphabet value will become c. For the third iteration, you'll say alphabet plus plus. So c will be printed and the alphabet value will become d. So after 3 iterations, the inner for loop will stop working. You'll come outside. You'll say cout endl, come on to the new line. Then again go at the start of the for loop. I will now become 4. And you get the idea, right? So do I have to even dry run the last two steps. I'm guessing you guys are capable enough after understanding this much that you can dry run it. You'll get the output as A, B, C, D, and lastly you'll get A, B, C, D, E. Okay, so I hope you understood this for loop. I did not dry run the last two steps. That is because I'm guessing you guys must have got a hang of it and you've understood why this character alphabet is created inside the outer for loop and the working of this post increment operator. You can do this in two steps. So you can say cout alphabet or print the alphabet value, and then in the next statement inside this for loop itself you can say alphabet plus plus or plus plus alphabet. Okay, but we've clubbed the two statements in one, and this one statement is doing the work of that two statements. But if you're confused, you can do it in two steps. Okay, so this was triangle pattern 2, and now let's jump to triangle pattern 3. I hope I'm not going very fast. If you think so, let me know in the comments. I will try to slow it down in further videos. But moving ahead with triangle pattern 3, over here again we want the half pyramid only. We want the incremental alphabets, but the only catch over here is the alphabet cannot repeat itself. So on the first row we want one element and it has to be A. On the second element we cannot start with A. So we'll start with B and C, because on second row we want two elements. On third row we want three elements, but we cannot repeat A, B, C. We have to move forward with D, E, F. On the fourth we cannot use A, B, C, D, E, F, but we want four elements, so you'll say G, H, I, J. So of course the alphabet is incrementing, it is just that it is not repeating. Okay. So for this we create the char alphabet outside the outer for loop only once and initialize it with A. So let's do that. So alphabet equals to A. Then we start with the for loop, and the for loop conditions are again exactly same because we want this half pyramid pattern. Only the printing is different. That is what is going to happen inside the printing is different. So let's start off with int I equals to 1. I has to be less than n. N value is nothing but 5 only. It is constant pretty much in all the three patterns. So since I will start with 1 and I has to be less than equal to n, and we are saying I plus plus, the for loop will take values 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Correct? Now we go inside and the second for loop will start running. We are saying j equals to 1. J has to be less than equal to I. I is 1 for the first round. So the inner for loop will run only one time and we are going to say cout alphabet plus plus. So again, first the value is printed of the alphabet, which is A. Then plus plus, which is post increment is happening. And it is adding one value, which means the next ASCII value is being stored in the alphabet. And the next ASCII value is of B. Okay. Alright. After this, you'll again come at the start of the for loop. You'll say j plus plus, j will become 2. When j becomes 2, the condition becomes false because 2 is not less than equal to 1. Because I is still 1. So you'll come outside the for loop. You'll say cout endl and go to the new line in the command prompt. Alright, so this is the last statement. After this, you'll come at the start of the for loop and now you'll say I equals to 2. Because I will become plus plus. So I will become 2. Now remember, we have only declared and initialized the value of alphabet variable at the top once. So now we are not reinitializing or not recreating the alphabet inside the for loops. So we are using the same for loop. So that's why the alphabet value now is B. So when you go inside the second for loop, you're saying int j equals to 1. So you are again starting the for loop. And this time j has to be less than I. So 1 has to be less than equal to 2 this time because I is 2. So this inner for loop will run 2 times and it will take values 1 and 2. And now you're going to print 2 times alphabet plus plus. So for the first time, the value of alphabet is B. B is printed, then plus plus happens. So alphabet value becomes C. For the second round, again you say alphabet plus plus. What is the value inside alphabet variable? It is C. So C is printed and then you say plus plus. So alphabet value becomes D. So after 2 rounds of inner for loop, j becomes 3 and 3 is not less than equal to 2. So you'll come outside for loop, you'll say cout endl. Alright, so now you can see on the second row we printed B and C just like we wanted. Then you'll come at the start of the for loop. Now I will become 3. So when I becomes 3, you go inside and start with the second for loop, inner for loop. You'll see j equals to 1, 1 has to be less than equal to 3 and j plus plus, which means the inner for loop will now run 3 times, 1, 2, 3. All 3 times you are printing the same thing, alphabet plus plus. So alphabet value right now is D. So D is printed, D is incremented, then E is printed, E is incremented, F is printed, and F is incremented. So after 3 rounds of the inner for loop, it will stop working because J will become 4 and 4 is not less than equal to 3. So you'll come outside, you'll come to the new line. Okay, so I hope you've got a hang of it. I'm gonna stop explaining over here because this should be enough. If you're still confused a little bit, pause this video and try run the further steps. In further steps, you should get the output G, H, I, J and K, L, M, N, O. Okay? Alright, so this is triangle pattern 3 with a little bit of variation where the alphabets are not supposed to repeat. And I hope you've understood all the 3 patterns. This was the entire dry running process with the visual diagram and step-by-step working. Now let's quickly jump to the C++ IDE and C programs for these 3 patterns along with 3 extra patterns as well with similar variations. I have already typed in the entire code. We simply have to dry run it. Don't worry, I will be sharing the entire code with you guys. So let's quickly jump to the C++ IDE. Okay, so as you can see, I've already typed in the C++ code. You guys can pause it and at least type it once with your own hands, but if you're still very lazy, I will share the entire code. You can check the link in the video description on our official page for this entire article. So this is the pattern 1. This is not the pattern 2, okay? So these are extra patterns which we will see. Then this is the pattern 2 and this is the pattern 3. In between all the other patterns are variations which we will see. Now in the main function, I am just asking the user to enter the number of levels that we want to print. And I'm taking that num value from the user and I'm passing this num as n as an argument inside this function. And the innermost code is exactly the same that we saw onto the digital blackboard. So I'm not going to type it over and over again. This is exactly same as pattern 3. This is exactly same as pattern 2. And this is exactly same as pattern 1. So that is what I am calling over here half pyramid alphabets 1, half pyramid alphabets 5 and 6. We will see these 3 also in a minute. Let me just save this and let's go to execute, compile and run. And our program is running successfully. Let's enter 5. When I hit enter, there you go. You can see the 3 patterns that we just dry run onto the digital blackboard. We're getting A, B, B, C, 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 D, D, D and 5 times E. Then we are getting A, A, B, A, B, C, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, E. And then we are getting A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, K, L, M, N, O. Right? So 3 patterns that we just saw. There are 3 more extra patterns which I wanted to show you guys. And as I mentioned, I have shared the link. So what you can do is you can check out the code. There is a slight variation in the for loop looping statements. And depending upon that, the triangle is shifting its position. So let me just first show you what I mean by it. If I hit and 5, you can see the different angles of the triangle. Okay, so it's still half pyramid, but it is inverted or mirrored. And then we also have those repeating alphabets. So I just dropped in a little bit of extra codes if you just want to go through. Check out the link in the video description to check out these codes. And I hope you've understood the 3 different examples that we just dry run. Alright, we've successfully implemented the practical code also for these 3 patterns. So I'm guessing you guys have a very clear understanding of both theory working as well as the practical side. I'm gonna wrap up this video over here. I hope you've understood all these 3 patterns. If you have any queries or if you have any suggestions for different patterns, please let me know in the comments below. I will try to cover them. And please like this video if you've made it so far. Give this video a thumbs up. Share this video with your friends. Pattern printing programs are absolutely important. Share this entire playlist itself. If you're new on this channel, I make a lot of tech educational videos like computer programming, web development, data structures and algorithms, network security, Boolean algebra, whatnot. So definitely subscribe onto the channel and turn on the notifications so that you get updated with the latest videos. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.